Well, good morning and thank you. And this morning we are here with Dr. Kay Persichitte, and she's been so kind as to join us for a History Makers interview. We're at the AECT International Convention 2012 in Louisville, Kentucky. And so thank you, Kay, for your willingness to join us for this interview.
I am deeply honored. Thank you, Barbara.
So first we'll start out with having us introduce yourself and provide an overview of who you are and where you are and that type of thing.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm Kay Persichitte, and I'm professor and dean at the College of Education at the University of Wyoming in Laramie, Wyoming right now.
Okay. And how long have you been there?
This is my 10th year at UW.
Okay. All right. What is the primary focus of your work?
Well, initially, it was distance learning systems and distance learning systems design and technology integration across K-12 settings. But in the last decade or so, that's morphed more into teacher education policy and assessment systems.
Okay. Do you have a natural interest in that, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Being a dean?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. How did you get interested in this field, generally speaking?
You know, it was quite serendipitous. I had been a high school classroom teacher for many years and in the same community in northern Colorado, and was becoming increasingly disillusioned with some of the local politics. We kept building schools and not hiring teachers to put in them. And so I thought, in my naivete, I thought that the grass looked a lot greener on the higher ed side. And so I thought, well, because I love teaching, I thought let's find something to do in higher ed that's got a teaching focus as well. And so I literally picked up a graduate student handbook from a nearby university that I thought I could commute to pretty easily, and started looking at program names. And there was a brand new program being implemented that year in educational technology, and it was a PhD program that, by the description, I thought, wow, I'm not sure that I'm qualified to do that, but it sure sounds interesting, and it sounded like it had this focus on teaching and learning that really meant something to me still. That was the part of the career that I'd had so far that I didn't want to walk away from. Mm-hmm. And so I called over and arranged an interview with the department head, who was also the coordinator for this brand new program, and started there and just went down that path. So because I picked up a grad student handbook, and just started looking at degree programs.
Wow. Which institution was that?
That was the University of Northern Colorado.
Okay. All right.
So I started as a doc student there the second year that they had their program.
Oh, wow. Yeah. How did you become most interested in educational technology?
Well, you know, I think it was this real desire to stay connected to. I've always had a passion for working with people mm-hmm. in ways that I hope help them lift themselves up. Mm-hmm. And for me, that I found that through teaching, I think. And so when I was looking at these doctoral programs in higher ed, at that point in my life, I did not see myself as a teacher educator mm-hmm. or a preparer of a next generation of teachers. I thought I needed something and wanted something that was more technical, that was more opportunistic in the period of time that we were entering. I'd been teaching in my high school teaching. I'd been teaching a couple of courses in computer programming. I taught some Fortran and some COBOL and. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, maybe this technology stuff, maybe there's, because this was a long time ago now, so maybe there's more to this, maybe there's going to be more to this than it just looks like on the computer side mm-hmm. of it. And as it turns out, it was just the best choice I could have made. I mean, I had no idea how fortunate I was to have stumbled into that degree program at that point in my life and in our history.
Okay, well, a related question. What was your dissertation research focus on?
It was on technology, the uses and applications of technology by juniors and seniors in high schools.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point in time, as I was moving toward completion of my degree, and I had learned so much more about educational technology and its applications, then I got to thinking, well, maybe there is a way, or maybe I should stay in high school teaching and just think about my own teaching differently instead of moving to higher ed. And so I was still toying, I was back to toying with the idea of going back to teaching at the high school instead of moving into higher education. Hadn't really made that decision, but I was fascinated by this idea of how my own teaching might be changed by paying attention to what students in high schools were doing in terms of technology at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was about how juniors and seniors in high school at that point in time were using technologies across different kinds of courses, and then what the implications of that were for changes in teaching process and instructional strategies in the classroom.
Oh, wow. Okay, still very relevant today.
And still pretty relevant. Well, except that all the tools are different.
Right.
And we have such a greater, a broader choice of strategies, and or at least I know so much more than I used to know about the different theoretical and research bases. While those technologies have changed significantly in the decades since, what I know about in those instructional strategies, the theoretical bases and the research bases, have really morphed a lot. And so while it was, I think the topic of my dissertation is still very relevant, I would expect the outcomes of that same study to be very, very different today than they were 20-some years ago.
Okay. If you could, related to that, describe your career path after that. Where did you start out after your graduation, and take us down your career path?
So it sounds, it's pretty, in my view, pretty traditional. I was a first-generation college student and completed a bachelor's degree in mathematics and secondary education, and graduated with that bachelor's degree in 1975, and immediately got a job. I was very blessed, and immediately got a job at the local high school, and thought I had my dream job, thought I would teach. Seriously, thought they would carry me out of there in a basket, that was going to be my job forever, because it was my dream job. So I was a high school math teacher. And along the way, I completed a master's degree at Colorado State University in curriculum and instruction. Not a particularly strong program, but at that point in time, again, I was going to be a high school math teacher for the rest of my life, and I didn't have any significant aspirations for any advanced degree. Then I became disillusioned with the local politics of the school district, and that's when I decided that maybe I should think about higher ed. So I completed my doctoral studies and graduated from University of Northern Colorado in '93. I was fortunate enough to be asked back in 1 year later in the fall of '94 on a one-year term position. They had an unexpected opening in the faculty, and they said, come back just for a 1 year. And I thought, well, that'd be a great experience as a transition from high school to higher ed. So I accepted that position, and then again I was very blessed, and they opened that position line then to a national search and invited me to apply. And so I did, and was fortunate enough to then be moved into, in the next year, a tenure track position. So I stayed at the University of Northern Colorado. I was there 9 years, served 5 of those years as department head. And then in 2003, I was getting itchy feet, and things were just too complacent, I felt like. So it was time for a little bit of a change for me. And I found a position at the University of Wyoming. And at the time where we lived in Colorado, it was about 110 miles. So it was, it was a geography that I was comfortable with and a culture that I was comfortable with. And so I applied for this position as the Director of Teacher Education, which I got excited about because it kind of brought my career full circle. So I had, I'd worked in public ed for 19 years, and then I had 9 years in a graduate-only program at Northern Colorado. And now I was going to go do something in pre-service teacher preparation in teacher ed. And so I was fortunate and got that job, and it was my first full administrative assignment. And I did that for 5 years, and my dean at the time was retiring, and I was encouraged by several folks to consider applying for the dean's job. So after much conversation with my husband, I decided I'd give it a shot, and was fortunate enough again in a national search to be selected as the dean of the college, and I'm now in my 5th year there. So it's been a totally unexpected and unanticipated career path for me. But I've got to say that I think all of my preparation in this field and all of my connections and opportunities to build relationships in this really small community of instructional technology as part of AECT has given me that basis. I mean, it has given me the foundation and the encouragement, even if it was not explicit, to take these kinds of risks. And I've found I've had a skill set with my knowledge of instructional design, basic understanding of change theories and change models. Those things have been invaluable to me as I've transitioned from one role to another one. Very lucky.
Fits with leadership, doesn't it? Those
It does.
Qualities of good leaders.
It really does. Or at least it seems to have worked that way for me.
Oh, good. That's good. Okay. And then how would you describe your research interests and aspirations when you first started your career? And then you talked a little bit about that, but then if you could talk about how they changed over time.
Yeah, I think they were just initially pretty naive. I thought of research as pretty cut and dried, as pick your question, decide on your methodology, go do it, write up the results, take that to a next level or to the next study and go forward. And so I think I was just pretty naive. Much of my early research was driven by my dissertation, and not just by the topic of it, but by the methodologies that I used there. And so, early on, I just think it was pretty narrow. And over time then, and I think it was also influenced by my grad assistant experiences. So I had a couple of grad assistant experiences that were grant-based and around some faculty development, and I think that had some influence on it too. But over time, my research and my scholarship has become much more collaborative across not only colleagues in my particular institution, but across institutions, across disciplines within our field, and much more evolving. So I haven't been concerned about feeling like I was jumping across a line so much. I just make that decision. So as the tools and the research base has evolved, I've not been uncomfortable with making those changes. My scholarship is much more context dependent, and so it'll hone in on a particular issue, but then flow back out to the national or international relevance of that particular issue or perspective on a broader scale. But the context is influencing that much more than it ever has before.
Okay. What were some of the major ideas or approaches that stimulated your professional growth?
One of them, one area was just the idea of how we could better design and more effectively use technologies in faculty development. So when I was a classroom teacher, I can't tell you how many faculty development opportunities I had that were just total wastes of time. They didn't accomplish anything, and I would come out of them thinking, well, I probably learned what I was supposed to learn, but it wasn't relevant. It didn't matter. It didn't have any application for me, and so the field has helped me recognize not only what some better strategies are for working with faculty at different levels, and in different content areas, but it's also really helped me know that one size doesn't fit all, and it's okay that one size doesn't fit all, and it's okay to pick different technologies or different delivery systems, or to just totally start from scratch with something because you think it's not been done before, it's been done so poorly that you need to do it over. And so faculty development has been kind of a continuing theme, even though I don't have any. If you look at the Vita, there's nothing on there that looks like faculty development, but it has been. It's been important to me, and I think that's been influenced by how I still love to read about cognitive strategies and how people learn, and I'm fascinated by the work now that's more contemporary in brain sciences and how that might be connected to how we learn. And I think that's important for faculty development if we're ever going to raise the level of the effectiveness and the quality of teaching in our classrooms, even in higher ed. So I think about that now also in the context of my own faculty in the College of Ed.
What were some of the most important trends in the field so far during your career?
Well, for me, the evolution and access to the World Wide Web was huge. When my first year of doctoral studies, we were this brand new program on campus. It was the second year of this brand new program that nobody knew anything about, and we were the guinea pigs on the entire university campus to use this really crappy version of email that was a teletype kind of email, and you had to know certain commands to be able to send a message, and you had to know certain commands to be able to, and that's where we started. And very quickly that evolved into building our own websites, and then moving that into creating our own web-based systems for distance education. There were no learning management systems or computer-mediated systems available at that point in time. So we were building those and then using them to teach our students how to use them with their next group of students. Right. So that whole World Wide Web email thing, those were huge, and you had such a sense of accomplishment. You'd get somewhat what now is just a taken for granted access issue. You'd get it figured out, and then the technology would change, or 30 days later, well, here comes the software application that for $100 you could buy that you had just spent hours and hours and hours trying to figure out yourself. But to know that you have that capacity, and you were pulling together all of this stuff that is the field of instructional technology, about not only design but attention to learner needs and prerequisite knowledge and instructional strategies and assessment systems, and spiraling back to be able to recreate and update. It was just a wonderful, wonderful time, I think, in the 80s and 90s for our field.
Thank you. Okay, here's a big question. Who are some of the people who have had the most impact on your professional growth, and how did they affect you?
Well, I jotted down 4 names, and number 1 on the list. The other 3 are kind of on close to the same levels, I guess. But number 1 is definitely Ed Caffarella, who's former president of AECT, and he was the fellow that they hired from Maine to come to Colorado and build this program in educational technology. And he ended up being my advisor and my academic advisor and the chair for my dissertation research, and just a tremendous mentor through the 9 years that, well, through the 7 years. He left and went to New York the last 2 years that I was at Northern Colorado. But that first 7 years that I was there, he was just a tremendous mentor and all-around influential fella who sees the field from very much a broad and leadership kind of perspective. So I will forever be indebted to his mentorship. The others on my list are folks that have either a combination of professional influence and personal friendship, and it varies a little bit across what those levels are. But Sharon Smaldino has clearly had a tremendous influence on me personally, as well as being a great sounding board as a female in this discipline who has a very deep history and has contributions that are just over the top. And I will forever treasure that friendship and her help over these years. Ward Cates at Lehigh. This is a fellow who consistently reminds me that the power that we have in this field is only enriched to the extent that we work with each other and that we share with each other and that we problem solve together, and that as an association, AECT offers us the hub to be able to do that. And he's just such a wonderful voice for that I have great respect for him. And then the last one on the list is one I wrote down because I don't have colleagues, but I don't have a great personal relationship at all. But Charlie Reigeluth's work over the years has influenced me a lot. And as I've watched his research and scholarship transition into change and school transformations and change for schools, I've stayed interested in that because it's almost paralleled how my career has shifted. But the perspectives that he brings to it are just, from my lens, so real. They're just so right on target with things that that are possible. They're not so theoretical that you think, well, that's just never going to happen. And so I really have a great deal of respect for Charlie Reigeluth.
What do you think has been the greatest accomplishment of your career so far? Not that it's over, but so far.
So I read that question in the preview notes that you gave me, and I'm not sure I've had one yet.
Oh, I'm going to beg to differ.
I think if anything, maybe it's not any one event or one activity, but it's just this determination, this persistence to drive to the next goal, and to try to set ones that where lots of people can find success in that goal. And not to make it about me, but to make it about bringing others with me, whoever that might be. But I hope there's one out there for me, Barbara. Well, I hope there is. Something really great.
Can I ask a question related to that that's not on here? And I promise it won't be too hard.
Okay.
Well, it'll depend on your memory, but I can help with that, I think. But I want to point out one of the reasons that you were asked, or you're considered to be a history maker and a great contributor to our field, is all that you have done for AECT through the years, as you say, consistently and persistently. You're too modest to bring this up yourself, but what you have done for us in terms of guidance in setting standards for our field, in creating assessment mechanisms writ large for our entire discipline, and coordinating with our federal colleagues. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about your involvement in those kinds of activities, just to give folks a historical perspective on your work there?
The very first AECT conference that I came to, first of all, I came because Ed Caffarella said, "You will do this, and you will get a presentation together, and hopefully it will get accepted." And this was all very new to me and very surprising. But I came out of that conference assigned to, or having volunteered for, I honestly don't remember exactly how that happened, but to a committee that at that point in time in this organization was called the Standards and Accreditation Committee. And again, I didn't know anything about this work at that point in time, but that work helped me. Rodney Earl, Tom Blevins, Ed Caffarella were folks at that point in time who had been doing this kind of work for at least a decade at that point. And again, I just found tremendous opportunity to dig my heels in, learn about something new. Turned out that it was knowledge and experience that's helped me get the kinds of leadership and management jobs that I've fallen into. It's paid off because I have a knowledge base that a lot of folks who haven't had that experience have. So this work with standards and accreditation, connected to the National Council for Accreditation of Teacher Education, or NCATE, which is about to go away and become a whole new organization. That work has been tremendous experience, but it's also helped me stay very cognizant of the reality that in this field of educational technology, if we're not prepared to deal with and actively engaged in change process, then we're probably going to be in trouble. And we can resist, but the systems are going to shift, and depending upon where those pressures are and how strong they are, that shifting may happen faster or later. Right now, I think we're in a time of tremendous upheaval in that respect related to standards and accreditation around teacher preparation. And so all of that history that I've got now in that work with this association has not only informed my work as a dean in a college of education, but I think is informing how this organization now moves forward with a set of standards for our field that are not about teacher preparation anymore, but they're about this field and how we help our programs and our graduates understand that the whole world now is about performance assessment against a set of standards. And the sooner we accept and acknowledge that and go to work on making sure that we've got the kinds of data that show that our graduates can meet those performance expectations. Mm-hmm. I don't have any question in my mind, but what this organization and our field, the 6 standards that we've recently adopted as an association, are the right ones, and that the vast majority of our programs are meeting every one of those. I don't have any doubt of that. But what I doubt is that most of our programs have not yet reached the point where they've got the kinds of data to support, the performance data for their graduates to support that. And whether or not it's important to the programs because of federal or state or university policy or law isn't really not, from my perspective, the important part. The important part is whether or not our graduates are going to have the kinds of data that they need to make their case into their futures so that they can build the same kinds of careers that we've been fortunate enough to have in this field.
Well, your work in that area in the establishment of standards from the beginning has been pivotal for this organization, and so thank you.
Well, thank you.
And so the last question then, how do you want to be remembered within the profession?
I thought about this a lot. It's kind of like, oh, I really am over the hill. I'm on a bit here. But I wrote this down, so I'm just gonna read it. I want to be remembered as a person sincerely dedicated to the potential that each of us has to make the world a better place through teaching. So whether it's through mentoring or whether it's through being a parent or whether it's through your role as a faculty advisor with graduate students or as a teacher preparation person, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I think the world is a better place when we have quality teaching.
Well, thank you so much, Kay.
Thank you, Barbara. Love you.
Thank you.
Okay.